Well, let's start.
Yeah, let's get started. I want to show Jason's video from 2013. You alright with that? Yeah?
What video are you watching?
I think it's cool. I think it gives a good context for folks who haven't been up there.
Probably gonna yawn. You won't get any volume.
Oh, you already set up.
No. Well, I am, but I don't really.
While they get that set up, I'd probably just like to thank Schemo Co. and Skyrun for letting us have this discussion here. This is a community event, so I want everyone to be pretty darn comfortable asking questions and getting as much as you can out of it tonight. Please don't break anything, and if you do, make sure you buy it. Support this shop, they're great folks. So thank you guys for letting us have this conversation here. We're gonna start, sounds like, with a little bit of video that just gives a little taste of the world that Jason is featured in. And then
I'm sorry, I'm watching this guy.
I think the music is fantastic, so we have to wait till we have volume.
Yeah,
Then we'll get rolling here.
Are they mic'd up? Okay, sweet. This is texted it to you.
Alright.
There we go, yeah.
Yeah, we get some volume here. We're connecting, guys. Okay.
Plan is the WURL. WURL is the plan. 24 hours, hopefully.
There we go.
At least 15,000 vertical, 30 something miles.
What are our odds?
We better get going.
West Twin. What, 6 o'clock?
One down. More to go.
Bunch to go.
Yeah.
It's just everything you see in sight. It's just the world. Nice Mickey D's. World. Jason. Yeah. Oh, I want to the world. Yes. Ken West. My man.
Sorry for that photo. Seriously.
With that, an introduction to our panelists. Andy Urias, Stacy Urias, Stacy Urias.
Hold on.
Did I say it wrong?
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
I've been saying it wrong for this long.
Like 5 years.
You're right.
You're right.
You're right.
Yeah.
Plural. Right. You're right. This is Andy and Jason, Stacy and Alexa. Y'all, I think endurance sport is a lot about mentorship and sharing information. The WURL, and what help people understand what the WURL is.
You probably, since you're here, you probably all know, I would imagine. So Jared Campbell is the madman who came up with it, and it starts traditionally on Wasatch Boulevard, well, just above Wasatch, in Ferguson Canyon, and goes up to the top of the Salt Lake Twins, and stays on the ridgeline as closely as can be approximated all the way around the head of Little Cottonwood and back out to Lone Peak, down Bell's Canyon through the Notch and back to Wasatch. So it makes a nice horseshoe looking route that's high in sky, like around 11,000 feet all there. And it's what, 30, what years now? 30 something miles and 18,000 bird or something like that.
Right out the back door. A really aesthetic, crazy good route. Stacy, when you first learned about the route, tell us a little bit how you came to know about the route and then how you kind of the process of getting to know the route and then setting the best.
Yeah. Anytime I talk about the WURL, I have to talk about Alexis because I moved to Salt Lake late 2014 and heard about the WURL through climbing friends. And Alexis and I met on just a random trail running out to Kings Peak. We met that summer of 2015. And both were like, we've heard about this thing called the WURL. We don't really know anything about it. Maybe we should think about doing it. And 2 months later, we were doing the WURL together. So that was 2015, right?
Oh, yeah, that was, so she's 6, so that was 7,
Yeah.
6 years ago.
So this other cute little girl here is Alexis's middle child, Ray, and Ray was not born yet. And Alexis said she would do the whirl with me if she hadn't gotten pregnant. And so, which at the time I did not give my condolences, but really focused on the whirl. Yeah, but I don't know, we just heard about this crazy route above Little Cottonwood, and we were actually terrified by it.
We didn't know the grades at the time. So it was like, and at the time, the world was still something that like supposedly only like 20 people had ever done. I'm sure it's more than that because all the people who do it without saying. But it still was a new enough route that I still don't think it had seen that much traffic. And we like totally harassed Jason and Andy. I don't even know him. You probably could find an email from Stacy. There was like,
They asked a bunch of information, gave them a good, thoughtful response, and they ignored it all.
it was like,
We go to the whatever, Eastwood. And I was like, absolutely not. And then like, we're doing it.
Well, yeah, so
They
there
did all
wasn't
sorts of
a
weird
lot
stuff.
of, there wasn't a lot of info, so we spent a lot of time combing through different blogs and found Jason's blog and then Jared's blog. There was originally some thought that you would hit Storm Mountain first. Yeah, so
we've done various things of the road.
Jason said don't hit Storm Mountain, and we went anyways because we just thought it was more legit.
And it was.
Yes, it was. But yeah, I think our first time took us 27 and a half hours. We spent a lot of time taking breaks. Probably spent an hour 4 different times resting and hanging out with friends. We had friends bring up a stove with hot drinks, and it was all about just kind of taking it slow and having fun. And then over the years, as the world got more popular, that's when it was her idea to go faster, and then a couple years later, my idea to try to go faster, and then I dragged Jason on.
Sure. It is true.
And he set the record.
And Alexis, what was your process of getting to know it?
Kind of what Stacy said. Honestly, it was like this thing. We had a mutual guy friend who was like, "I'm gonna do it," and I remember being Stacy, thinking, we should go. It's 2 girls, and I don't know. It like haunted me. I don't know if you felt that way. That first summer, we hadn't done between the 2 of us. We'd done all sections, but like I still had. She was like a year and a half, so I didn't have quite as much free time to be going out every day. And I was like, well, I trust Stacy, so she's done, middle part. I've done the end or whatever. But I like remember dreaming about being on the original ones. I'm like, I have to go do this thing. I'm not able to sleep. And it felt like an adventure because not a lot of people have done it. And we both have climbing backgrounds, which I think set us up to feel comfortable with some of the exposure stuff. But I would describe it as a line. Scrambling's its own thing. It's different than vertical climbing. But it's beautiful. So, and then just like you said, like time goes by. I'm sure I'll do the world again at some point, but it kind of became this like, well, now Jason had to go through it really quick. But Stacy was around and we're like, man, we can close the gap between the girls. And I remember that the summer that I did it, she was also doing the foot injury. I went to mine. And, she was like, we had a conversation, like, absolutely, you can go under 720 for a girl. And so to me, it's kind of been fun, like, just like showing what we can do.
Jared did it first,
Jared did it first.
His
I can
time
tell you,
was-
19.
and then Nick Berry.
Nick Derry was 17, and then Jared was 16, and then I can tell you. Then Loomis, right?
Luke
Luke.
Nelson,
No, Loomis first.
right, and then Luke,
Then Luke,
and
then
then
Joey, and then Jason.
So you can look on Jared's blog and see that there's a big gap from when Jared first did it in like 2008. And that video you watched of Jason, Jason and Noah were early in those first few years. And then it seemed that the world was kind of untouched for several years. And then that's kind of when Alexis and I sort of heard about it and thought, this is weird, but why hasn't anybody been on it? And also, how come there's only like 1 or 3 women or something who have been on it? So it definitely seemed more adventurous kind of in 2015, and it's also great that it's gotten more traffic and now it's
There's a trail.
there's a full trail around the line.
Yeah, yeah. And did you guys come upon it together and experience it for some? What was your process?
For disclosure sake, I
Counts for
I
something.
thought- so actually, I never intended to do it as they've all done it. I tried to do it first on skis. And this was back in 2011, probably 2011, with Jared Inouye and Bart Gillespie, and they had the idea, and I was pretending it was. And rather than stay on the ridge and do a kind of proper whirl, we were gonna try and ski every peak. And we got tripped up in ski resorts the first time, they wouldn't let us through. And then we decided we were gonna sneak through the next second time, and we made it. We didn't get Lone Peak or Bighorn because it started snowing in the storm, but we skied the other prominent peaks that were like in the top of the name. So that was my first experience, and then I tried to go back in the summertime with a buddy who had never done anything that big. He was from Jackson, and we made it to Hidden Peak, and he wanted to quit and download the tram. I wouldn't let him, so we kept going to the Fife just before Tigerhorn, and he said he was done. He just totally rebelled against me, and decided to going down. And I just figured I could try it again, and whenever I wanted, go again. And so I went down with him, and I've never gone back. Let that be a lesson. When you have the opportunity to seize it, I should have left him for dead and just gone head alone.
Always make friends.
Yeah. Pirates code.
Jason, what about you? How did you kind of come down the route and what's the process?
Well, like most things, life.
I just skied it.
No, I let him know about it.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Which, to be fair, is true. I went and helped him and our friend Brian out when they were trying to go fast. Brought him McDonald's on Superior. So yeah, just I think seeing it there and then talked to a lot of Noah about it. And it is a pretty obvious line. So we just kept talking about it and decided to go do it.
Rest is history.
And you got it now.
3 times. Well, kind of 2 times with 1 fake time. Where we,
I mean, if you adhere to Jared's original route, you have to come down climb through the notch on Low Peak and then out Bell's Canyon, which is technically much harder but faster probably than going out Jacob's Ladder.
Yeah.
And some of his friends were so shook that they didn't feel comfortable with down climbing the notch, and so they walked down Jacob's Ladder. And I would have been at that time too, but I was working. And so yet another time I brought the McDonald's at 2, I got off work at like 2 a.m. and showed up at the trailhead when they finished with a bunch of big bags or something.
Yeah.
I want to. There's a bunch of offshoots here that I want to talk about as far as the prep for this and drop support McDonald's or whatever. Is that primary? Is that the way people go?
no, it's not. It's not the key. That's the way you go slow and hang out.
Okay.
But support is key.
Support.
Yeah, it's not bad. I mean, there's so much. There's a lot of offshoots that only.
Well, it depends on the style of how free you are, right? If you're gonna take hand-ups from people, then
Is that how it went?
That's how it went.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's unpack that. Yeah, I mean, like, how to, let's maybe, just go down the line or whoever has something to contribute as far as how would somebody self-support it? Is that the best way to do it? With passions and that angle, or?
I mean, it's unsupported, self-supported, and
Fully
sides.
supported.
Yeah.
And if you want to go fast, fully supported is certainly faster. I mean, when I did it this last summer, I think I had 3 backpacks that were loaded and someone to meet me at different spots. So they just hand me a backpack, keep walking. You don't have to stop, you don't have to refill bottles. It was just swap them out and go. And that's obviously the fastest if you can get people to go hand you backpacks.
What if somebody just wanted to do it? They don't have any friends, they just want to go out and do these things.
That's the way I've done it both times.
Yeah, let's unpack
Kind of out of necessity in some ways, like you're saying.
With your friends, we would have
These guys, we're not mostly just because like our schedule, we couldn't commit. We had 3 small kids and childcare was lining up. I did it with my husband. Going up and putting stashing water. I think we're all familiar with a couple of those places up there, like Cardiff, Catherine's, Hidden, and then I think Fife was the other place. And that requires you to go up at some point, leave water and or food. We had to use food as well. You know, that doesn't get squirrels in it. So part of the annoying thing, like you say, is you get to your stash and you have to like unpack. Like, and I forgot a knife because that would have made things go way quicker. But you know, squirrels get you food. But that does give you the freedom to not meet Thailand or whatever. So but that is also something I've been thinking about lately, and we may or may not want to talk about though, is that one of the problems I've seen with that is a lot of those places have leftover world stashes.
I actually want to talk about that, yeah, like building
So-
what's the best way to build one.
Yeah, and maybe that's something like, exactly, you know what would be awesome? Maybe we have a place that like, it's, I don't know, is it such a well-used thing that everyone would.
I think you gotta clean up yourself.
So you gotta
If you
go back.
drop something, you gotta pick
You gotta
it
go
up.
back.
But people don't, that's the reality, is like, people don't.
That's
I picked up on my world attempt, we picked up like 3 things that were like 2009, like 17.
There it is.
Probably, and then they said A, D, so that is like, those are things that at the time I did not think a second thing about it because it wasn't still seen as much traction. All the traction got last year even. It became more of a concern, you know, just like, oh, we have a lot of foot traffic up here. So that is something to think about. But also, it was interesting to see how quickly, when I watched Stacey and Jason, it felt like a race. It was fun, it was exciting. It was like, okay, we gotta meet them there at the right time, get them their packs,
Yeah,
because
the
the kids
backpack
missing
transition
time.
was like,
Yeah, it was awesome.
he
Like,
was helpful, speed hiking
like he was
through it,
running
just
through Hidden
off the
Peak
backpack.
when I got there, because I knew to, and then I was waiting for Stacey, and I was like, oh, this is how you do it in flight time. It makes sense to me. And there was technically there was no, you're not leaving anything on mountain either, you know? So I think some people are like, oh, they were supported. I'm like, yeah, they also probably less impact where they went as well, which is something to think about. But yeah, I do think a lot of people, or having friends meet you in all those places, that would be like
They sound basic, but like for people that might want to do it, that aren't going to do, and not have any outside support, I mean, it's probably does sound really basic, but how do you build it? I mean, like, what is it? How do you build it? And, you know, how do we prevent garbage ending up gotten by squirrels? I mean, what would be the bullet points if you offered data for folks, like, they're gonna go stash it on here, what does it need to look like?
Something that's sealable and wildlife can't get into it. Yeah. We've done it before on other traversing things, where you need like,
Toolbox.
toolbox.
You know. Where, you got a big bottle of water with cat, but for food, it's gotta be something that
Yeah,
people, animals can't get into.
bars and the toolbox is great because like animals can't get into it. Other option is something you can carry, so we left stuff that we could throw in our packs when we got to it too, right? So then we weren't having to think, okay, we gotta get back up here. Cause I think that's what I've seen, is like people take their stash and leave their box and stuff
As far as grading, you know, Jason, if you're a classification or, you know, I think a question people often have is, am I ready? Like, what do I need to be, what kind of running shape do I need to be, what kind of exposure do I need to have? And that's open to everybody. How do you kind of go from that direction with classification?
Trail run, go do it.
That's it.
No, you gotta be comfortable, you gotta be comfortable traveling, like fourth class, maybe a little bit chocolate here and there with some exposure.
I'd say 4th class for London.
Not a lot.
Yeah.
Sports,
So yeah, you can run that.
significant portion.
You can run like maybe you can run. I feel like there was no more than a third of it.
Was runnable,
No more than that.
3rd of it runnable, 3rd of it hikeable.
like
The third that you have
easily
easy
hikeable, yeah. Like just broken terrain where you're just walking quick.
But I mean, I think you just need to be smart about it. If you go up there and it looks like it's gonna be too sketchy, then just turn around. Like, don't climb up something you wouldn't feel comfortable climbing down. And then I think you can just go check it out and see how you feel.
The bits of like I, you know, prepping to go quick on it, or for folks who haven't been on it, what do you guys find success with getting ready for moving quickly on it?
Every time I've done it, it's been just scouting out sections and knowing where you're going. Because there are a lot of places you can get lost or just take a wrong turn because a boulder blocking your view, and then all of a sudden you're down this gully that's loose and kind of sketchy.
Yeah, I think Adam Lucas said there are no shortcuts on the world, only wrong turns. And it haunted me. I'd be like, we went the wrong way around that bridge. No, and they're only like seconds, but minutes add up.
Yeah.
So like he's saying, doing it right. Like it's
Scout it in
doing the
daylight
actual.
and be familiar with where you're going.
It seems another big question is when, it seems like that's, like Alexis, where we were talking earlier about, you guys spreadsheet, had it dialed in, now the splits, and it was like, pretty dialed in.
Yeah, her husband was
Well,
texting
Brennan
me,
was.
according to his calculator, what Jason was
When
doing,
Jason went and
he was
nailed
telling
it.
me that he's on pace for whatever based on his checkpoints, because he had this whole
Yeah, he found out a
spreadsheet
spreadsheet for
filled out.
Jason.
He's an engineer.
Yeah.
But to the tune of like, what do you leave on it, that's a question that is worth thinking about, not only public safety, but efficiency. Yeah.
Cause like Jason moved fast enough that it made sense to like optimize.
This isn't just a WURL, but it's anything that's long. So how many of you have done something that lasts longer than 24 hours? Okay, so do you perform better getting a good night's sleep and waking up at like 6 and then going 24 hours from there? Or do you perform better when you wake up at midnight, maybe not having slept and trying to do 24 hours midnight to midnight? And so that's one question. And then the other is daylight and where do you want to be when you're on the most technical portions of the whole traverse? And
I
so,
agree. Like I think coming out of bells in the dark, it's crap shooting.
yeah.
Doesn't matter how many times you've done it, somehow you get to the bottom of the notch and you're like, where?
And that's when you're the most tired, and down climbing a notch might be the most,
Disgusting.
one of the most technical parts.
Oh, maybe there's a trail there. Was.
I think ultimately this talks to the importance of scouting it. The first half is called the triple traverse, and the back half is called the beta. Is that right? So those are popular chunks to do, and then you can get a feel for both the technicality and your comfort with the technicality, because the first and the third are the most technical, and then the middle third is Catherine's Pass and like Honeycomb Cliffs, and you do have Devil's Castle in there, but I argue Devil's Castle is better compared to the first half or the first third and the last third.
It's just all really positive instead of
Slow, yeah. So if you at least, I feel like the first time Alexis and I did it, we definitely did the first third, we definitely did the last third, and then there were just chunks in the middle that we hadn't really done and figured it was well traveled enough that we probably wouldn't need to know it. But yeah, knowing chunks of it and how long it takes you individually, you can then start to answer questions of, okay, when do I want to start? When do I want to be in the dark in the beginning, or do I feel more comfortable being in the dark in the end? Ultimately, you could really go any time. That's kind of, I think this, when Jason and I went 2 years ago, last year, we factored in like weather or temps, we factored in the time of, or the amount of daylight, depending on the time of year. We talked a lot about that, so.
Like you caught a really cool day in August, right? September.
Early September.
What was it?
Yeah, it was like a crazy high of 70 in the valley, kind of
Yeah.
early September day or something. Right?
And we had argued about that because he was like, oh, let's just wait till the end of September, it'll be even colder. And I was like, yeah, but we'll have less daylight, we gotta do that now.
And then the weather was perfect. So. But to your point, sleep I think is huge for me. I mean, everyone's a little different, but if it's 24 plus hours, full night's sleep.
He gets 9 hours of sleep at night.
It's good.
Yeah, he's kind of.
Yeah.
Okay,
I have a 1-year-old, so I get like 6 hours.
no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, so after you leave Drum, that section between Drum and like Superior where Monte Cristo is, can you talk a little bit about that? Because I've heard kind of different reports on that. I was just curious about your experience on it.
I messed up.
I've never done that the same way.
It is a tricky part.
I know, I'm like,
Sorry, you hit it well.
I thought you just stay kind of on the ridge and it takes you there, but it's boulder hopping, a little bit of exposure. I think there are a bunch of little towers you can go around one way or another, but you kind of have good line of sight most of the way. And just kind of stay on the ridge. But technically, it's not that hard, but I would say it's fairly exposed. Where if you took a bad fall, you could tumble, 10, 15 feet, maybe start rolling more. But you definitely don't want to fall on most of that section.
Correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's more technical from Jefferson's to Drum than from Drum to Rutgers.
Okay,
Agreed. For sure.
So you could do that part as like a shorter recon.
yeah.
And there were a couple like slabby sort of climbing out of those notches.
Yeah, I just finished the triple and our next section will be that section, so just.
Yeah, if you did those first 3 peaks, then technically the next however long to Superior is easy. Even though there are a couple, steeper scrambling sections.
Yeah, if it gets hard, you're, yeah, it gets too hard, I should say, like dangerous, where you're like, oh,
I think the reason that there wasn't a lot of action on it for the first however many years, because Jared had reported a 5/8 down climbing.
Yeah.
And so aren't that many people that are fit enough to do something that far and feel comfortable down climbing 5/8 on road. And there's definitely not 5/8 down climbing.
You can find it.
You can find it if you wanted to, but you can stick to like basically the ridgeline and not have to do anything more than like just kind of down climbing some boulders, nothing major on big one.
And it's almost always sticking to the ridgeline is easier than trying to skirt off it.
Been looking for 5/8 down.
Yeah, exactly.
But what about the crux? It's probably different maybe for everyone.
Like the technical hardest move crux.
Yeah, physically, and then I want to mentally maybe as well. Maybe I really point on sleep. I mean, that certainly keep that pretty, after that piece of it. But physically, it's just
Almost the entire audience raise their hands thing that's done 24-hour pushes, so it doesn't sound like that's a problem.
everyone's off for there. What about the physical? I mean, where do you guys? Where's the?
I thought it was just the heat of the day.
Okay.
As far as feeling physically the worst. I felt the worst right before Devil's Castle. Like it was midday, and I don't know, I just didn't feel great. And then I saw Andy at Baldy, and things kind of turned up from there. So I don't know. I think it's probably different day by day. I think technically the hardest move.
I think it's depends on who you are.
Yeah,
I agree with what you said.
I don't know. I think maybe climbing up to Sunrise
That's what I think.
from Twins up to Sunrise. There's just a little bit of climbing.
Or out of the notch to up to drop. The first moves out of that notch.
Yeah,
Depends on saying that.
depends on you. Or climbing the notch. Just it's not that hard, but it's loose, and you're kind of tired of that stuff. Yeah.
I've always thought Bighorn was just, it just requires, in my mind, the most amount of like rock climbing. You have these big boulders that you're jumping off and climbing down.
I thought it was same
Why-
thing.
why Baldy?
Huge
That's true.
huge boulders coming down the west river.
That's true.
So there are a bunch of spots that are
I don't,
a little tricky not to.
like Baldy feels like it's the biggest mountain. I feel like you've been on it the longest, so you kind of feel like draining because you're like, oh, I'm still on this peak. I'm still on it. And then there's this one that comes after 5. Somebody might know what I'm talking about. Is that what it's called? It is. I think it's like the Chelsea's. It's like really big, moving boulders. Every time I'm on it, I'm like, oh. Because I always forget to say it's like kind of like they're saying. I think it depends. Like Drummer can feel hard if maybe you go too far to one side and then having to do this weird scramble, right? To the point, coming back to what Stacey's saying, I think it pays to do specifically to me that ridgeline, the cotton ridgeline, has kind of like the poor quality rock than anywhere else, I would say. And the notch, while it's like annoying and you couldn't maybe have it looks so much worse than it is. You get this, okay, it's just really annoying. It's all prickly, it should go it's like insulting theory, but.
Well, and weather, I think the first time that we went in 2015, we started out in kind of stormy weather, and I remember we thought we were gonna have to bail. And then this last year when I went up, I also started out in like 23 degrees, and it was windy, and I had my bikini zip up on, and it just seemed so intense because it was also kind of dark, and it it was misty. We were worried that there might be fiberglass ice, and so it seemed super intense. But it was just walking on slabs, but the exposure was there. It's kind of dark. So yeah, I think the difficulty depends on all those factors.
Time of year. What's time of year?
I don't know. I mean, midsummer there's more
Yeah.
midsummer there's more daylight, but it's too hot. Yeah, this year.
I thought this year would have been a good year, because fortunately we don't have the snow back, so we could have done it, without snow sooner. With the days. But we had the heat, so.
Yeah, probably September.
And I would always say
Yeah, I
fall.
agree, September.
Cool for
I
us.
think-
Full time dry rot.
I think if you know the route, the heat slows you down more than the dark. Or at least it did for me. Yeah, so it's like, oh man, you're hot and I did it a couple of times.
Everybody raised their hand about, well, not everybody does put in huge days. I mean, mental framework for putting in a big day where there's gonna be some exposure. You guys, everybody here, big days, out in mountains, how do you, when there's an objective or mileage or a herd on the world or otherwise, how do you guys kind of mentally frame that so you make your own statement?
The only thing I can think of is when we went to ski and we were on, and we were like, we're out of here, this feels terrible, we're gonna die today. So, I think you just have to be honest with how you're feeling with the work you put in. And if you've done enough and feel like it's a good day and are moving well and feel safe, then go for it. But if there's some doubt, maybe pay attention to it, I don't know.
I think the mind is more powerful than the body, and the body these long endurance endeavors, whether it's a 100-mile trail run or something like the WURL, whatever. I always use the example, like if we're out on a 5-mile run through the neighborhood, sometimes the first few miles feel easy and then the last few miles are dragging, like, oh, are we done yet? And that's like half an hour, right? Really short. But it could be a 100-mile run and the first 85, 80, whatever, feel easy. First 50 are a breeze. And it's like this, at least for me, my mind, not a breeze. I said it wrong. They're not that mental struggle where I doubt it myself or I don't think I can do it, because I feel like my mind's already set the limit some down the road. And so, like, the attempts I've had on the WURL or the long things, the first half of it feels easy, expected. And then you have to be prepared for when surely it does get harder and be ready to kind of overcome those doubts and things like that. And that's probably different for everybody, but I find that towards the end of an event, your mind allows you to do things up to that point, and then you gotta overcome it.
To Andy's point, like, what was different from a 100-mile, because I feel like when trail running, I can tune out the time, it's like roll through miles, but it does require you to be tuned at all times. So it kind of has maybe a slightly more mental wear, especially if you are stressed on that kind of terrain, that can work you out.
Sure, if you're really comfortable in that terrain.
Then it's not as bad, but still, I would say it takes more maintenance than trail running, for sure.
And to avoid some of that, it's just the preparation. You go do it a ton and know it, you're like, oh yeah, I've done this 4 times this summer, I know where I'm going, it's not a big deal. Then that mental strain's gone and it feels a lot easier. Well, especially when you're tired. What's that?
Still, it might not be gone for everybody.
Sure, but lessons.
Yes, I agree. Preparation is key. Like,
For anything, really.
People are always curious about fueling, and I know it's like, for some people it's really, really basic, and it's just like, whatever works, it's really difficult, that's probably fair and true. But what are you guys, what's worked well, moving quickly, or just, let's go slowly, maybe moving quickly, what's worked well and what maybe hasn't been delivered for you guys? On the WURL or on Long Island? What might be some data for folks?
So on the WURL, I ate a bunch of things that I felt like were palatable and that I could get down. Because what you don't want to do is go out there with a bunch of
Just goose or something.
Yeah,
Just sour stuff.
and then all of a sudden you don't want to eat anything. So there's this like high calorie drink called Martin. I think it's 300-400 calories per half liter or so. and it's not very sweet. It's like, it's not that good, but I knew I could stomach it. So I think I had, 100 calories of that almost every hour, and then supplemented it with what I thought was going to be good: peanut butter M&Ms and an avocado sandwich. The avocado sandwich was disgusting, and I could eat like a bite of it and had to get rid of it. And then Andy brought me a little soft flask full of pickle juice, which was delicious. It was hot. You get hot just being in the sun, so something really salty was really good. And he's a believer that it fights off cramps. I think there's some evidence to say it does.
Plenty of literature on it now that
For sure.
the acetic acid actually
They're
helps.
doctors.
Yeah. A bunch of proprietary products kind of based on the same principle, but it helps prevent cramps.
And I kind of buy it. Like, he always used to be drinking this stuff, and I'd be like, "You are disgusting. How are you going to drink straight pickle juice?" In the world, I'm sold. Like, I think it is really delicious.
Because he's here for, he's like sugary drink after sugary drink, and then it just cuts through all that and makes something different.
Yeah.
But the intensity is never high enough that you have to be straight gels or something like. So his point is, whatever you can tolerate and stomach and maintain feeling throughout. So that's something that you kind of got to experiment too.
And it probably rotates. I used to like Snickers bars. I can't even look at it. Like, I can't imagine people eat those things for fun.
Oh,
Yes.
good.
It's because I've had way too many of
What
them.
do we used to bring on?
Chewy granola bars.
Cereal. I just started eating those again after like 10 years off.
Stacy, what
I don't have the best recommendations, but so I'll put in a plug.
Thank you. Albany's Ultimate Gummy Bears.
Yes, gummy bears. So about the only thing I can stomach is gummy bears, which I do get tired of. So all that to say, I feel like the really, really old beta would be to like carbo load and like eat a lot in the days before. And while I don't know if that's really the best way to go about it for everyone, I end up doing that because I don't know, I get pretty nauseous. Alexis was just saying I had this sandwich that, it like took me forever to try to eat it. I just can't keep going. Gotta finish that sandwich. Like, so I just say that if anybody is like tries all the different foods and all the different things and they're still like nothing feels good, I'm like, I don't know, maybe just gummy bears and like eat a lot in the days before. Yeah.
We make fun of this a little bit, but there's a little bit of buzz about being fat adapted now for endurance
Little buzz.
sports. I try not to pay
that's
too much
totally
attention to it. But when we first started doing stuff in the mountains, we couldn't make it up. Like,
Superior.
I remember first time trying to skin up Baldy in the winter. I had to stop and like have a Gatorade and pizza and like a candy bar, and like I'm like balking going up, and this is something that should take like 45 minutes. And then we're like, when we tried to climb the Grand Teton the very first time, we're like,
I know where this is going.
where?
Falling asleep on the bathroom. Falling asleep on the toilet at McDonald's.
No,
That's where this story ends.
No, I'm saying we were stopping all the time and eating like licorice and all this crap like, the whole way. And just over a decade, we can go out now and probably go all day and not have any food. So it's something that as you train yourself over time, you can. The intensity is low enough that you don't need necessarily sugar and like glycogen. And if your body's efficient burning fat, you can go forever.
If you're elite athletes.
No, it's the pace. So everybody has their own pace to do that. Some
Right.
people's walking, some people's running, some people's.
But like specifically the WURL, I guess what I mean.
No, I'm not saying you can do the whole world with no food.
Well, maybe you could. I don't know, like, you know what I mean though? I just mean,
But what I'm getting at is with volume and time and training your bodies a little bit, you become more efficient. You don't necessarily need to be squeezing a gel every,
hour.
especially on something like that with the intensity.
Would you say every big like you guys ski it is and you guys go out?
Totally depends on the day. If it's just a day we want to go ski for 10 hours and just chat and tell jokes and ski, we won't bring that much. But if it's, we're going to go hard and actually work out today, then yeah, you're trying to put sugar in your body every 30 minutes.
Because we're at that intensity where we're just burning like, But yeah, if we're just going out for 4 hours or something, it's probably not bring anything.
Yeah.
Eat some snow.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, that's
You don't even go do
Pickle juice is good, I think people do something.
You don't need to go do Swiss ski.
This is savory, I thought about it.
No need to pick up this when you're trying to set records. We're racing.
Okay, I do want to open it up. I've got some other stuff that I wanted to ask these guys, but are there any, thus far, let's just pause for the pause. Are there any questions that have come up about anything that we talked about at this point? Anybody want to be pretty open here? Does anybody have any questions for these guys up to this point?
Curious what your password rate for your attempts and about how much water you carry between different seconds.
So I had just a running pack with probably 1.5 liters of that kind of gross tasting Martin drink. And then probably a couple hundred calories of M&Ms. Oh, and I think some Scandinavian swimmers from Trader Joe's, you know. Mixed group, but so I had a pack like that from the start to pull-on pass, then grabbed another pack with basically the same thing, maybe a sandwich instead of the.
These are just running vests, like every company makes one, but.
Yeah.
I've seen the like,
Yeah.
Jamo, where are you? You guys have any of those here?
Yeah, the next door.
I would say like probably 1.5 liters to 2 is where you're starting with at every time you're rehydrating, I guess, you know, like when you pick up the pack.
And then I had another at Snowbird, and then I had a friend meet me at 5. So it was a total of 4 packs with 1.5 liters each. And I really tried hard to get all of them.
And were you drinking just straight water or electrolyte?
It was mostly this like sports drink, kind of highish calorie, some electrolytes in it. I don't think it has a ton actually, which pickle juice I think covers that, and then some. So yeah, 1.5 liters, 2 liters times 4.
But it just also depends on the day, like, right?
That's true. It was really cool. It would have been hot. It definitely would have
I ran out.
come up to doubling it.
Yeah,
And the person.
right.
That's true.
Little people don't need as much.
The best inside data you guys have to share for like navigating certain sections. Just like there's a couple spots that can be pretty tricky. Like especially getting out of the notch after a long day, like getting over to Bell's Canyon Trail, like you want to contour over to the trail there. Any other spots where like you have some like insider information on like navigating?
I mean, I think that's the hardest one to navigate. That and probably Ferguson. As far as specifics, I feel like we'd have to pull a map out or some pictures. But figuring it out was definitely just doing it multiple times. Because in Bell's, you know, there are multiple ways to get down to where you want to go. And I feel like after doing it a couple times, I could basically go the same route every time. And the day of, we kind of hit the exact same route, popped out exactly where we wanted to. And that was purely just from doing it multiple times and like remembering, oh, it's this little gully. After that, there's this patch of rocks that you cross, then you're in the trees and you kind of contour here until you hit this other cliff band. And like that actually what I'm saying is how I did it. Like you just remember exactly where you need to go and kind of base off landmarks.
When did you feel like you saved the most time on the whole route?
Compared to my previous attempts?
Yeah.
All of it. I mean, those other two with Noah were eating cheeseburgers on Wolverine and hanging out.
I feel like there's some key data going over South Thunder. South Thunder, you could sort of go straight to you could make a straight line, but you're doing a ton of boulder hopping. And so I think all three of us in separate attempts kind of realized you actually want to go higher on South Thunder and stay really close to the drop off, basically. Lightning Ridge. If you were to look at your GPS mark, it would look like you're taking a more circuitous route, but it ends up being faster because you're not doing as much boulder hopping. I think I learned that was a big time saver.
And when we would go out prepping, you know, it'd be like, you go this way, I'll go this way. We'll see, try and hold the same pace. We'll see which one looks better. And it was almost every single time staying as true to the ridge as possible was the fastest and typically the easiest. So yeah, those tricky sections in the woods, I think is going and doing it. Otherwise, it's almost every time stay on the ridge.
On Bighorn, coming off Bighorn.
Bighorn,
That's a good one. I would say that's actually like data.
that is definitely.
I feel like if you stand on the summit of Bighorn and look at the summit of Lone Peak and kind of draw a line, you go that way, and it pulls you a little bit to the right, because if you go due west, that's where it cliffs out, and Jared is down Thunder.
And that you do not want to down climb. So yeah, you're bumping to the north side of Big Horn.
And you're still staying on the ridge because the ridge goes down to the saddle that way, but it's much safer and faster.
Yeah, you'll know, I feel like you get clipped out there. Yeah. But that's a place I like recommend everyone does that section.
For sure.
Especially because for a lot of people that'll be in the dark.
And I've done that a lot. And then in 2013 we got lost. The next year I did it with some friends, we got lost. And that was because we were doing it in the dark. In the day you could see where you're going, but in the dark it was definitely tricky to navigate. Even knowing it, what I thought reasonably well.
That's helpful. People are asking, when do you know that you're ready? But the overwhelming answer is go out there, get on it. If you're not confident, not feeling it.
Just show that better style on outside.
It's true. That's better
It's all
style.
about style. It's really.
There's also, in between South Thunder and Bighorn, there's these two little bumps. And we used to argue, like, are those bumps on the world, or should you hit these? I'm calling them bumps, but they're actually like sub peaks, yeah. No, they don't have names.
They're like 200 feet. Little seem like they're stay on it.
He doesn't.
Stay on. And I looked at Luke's track and Joey's, and it's stay on the ridge the entire time.
But I think you and I did that where you stayed low and I went high,
Yeah.
and actually hitting them, you move quicker because it's a bit of a faster line. And you don't get caught in brush. You're on rocks,
And it's
but
not like
it's
side hilling, loose junk. It's like on solid rock. And that is better style. Staying on the ridge.
Yeah, I think that's like the mantra, like slow it down, stay on the ridge.
Yeah.
Cause like on Lightning Bridge, I feel like there's a couple times where you can't see South Thunder. And you're like, is it over there or is this going there? And that's where you want to almost dive down and like mess with the route. But like Stacy's saying, that's something that's good to remember is just to stay higher. And you might have to do a little bit of this, right? Like you're jogging with the cliff side, but it's the route.
I have another follow-up question. So, Sunset to Devil's Castle. It seems like it would make more sense to kind of stay off some of that.
Stay on it.
Stay on it?
There's a trail just to the left.
Just to the
You
left.
want to use it, but you got to stay on the ridge. And I wanted to go on that trail because that part it would be faster. But I looked at Luke's and I looked at Joey's and they stayed on the ridge. So I was
Yeah.
like, whatever, I'll stay on the ridge.
We talked a lot about that because it's like there's a trail
Kind
there.
of climbing around.
And it
branches,
slows you.
can't
I
pick
actually
up.
feel like Devil's Castle is the slowest section of the whole thing. And it's mean. I always end up getting like scratched in the face.
Yeah, I think that's the section you're talking about is like if you just avoid getting whacked in the face by bushes, it'd be easier, but it's more of a straight line.
Just staying through it.
Yeah, just
And
kind of like duck through the trees or like walk over a branch. And I, again, as we said earlier, there's really a trail that's starting to kind of form through the trees.
And everything's so contrived, right? Like this whole route's just like a made up thing. And it's like Jared did it this way, so I think that's what you have to do. We're following his vision, right? His vision was to stay on the ridge, so you stay on the ridge. And that's what, like I said, the people before have done, so I think the tradition is pretty set now. And you can look at all those tracks and be like, oh yeah, everyone just stayed on the ridge, even though there is this little trail that would be a little nicer.
We had someone on the live stream ask, they want to do a little bit of a deeper dive on the notch going into Bells. They're wondering, it's at night, loose, kitty litter. Is there a better way to get down it, or is it just get down it?
I think you just get down it. The second time I did this with some friends, they were a little spooked on Bighorn. Things did not go well. Tears may have been shed, I don't remember. And they hadn't done it, so I was like, we're not going down the notch. And we went out Jacob's Ladder. And I don't know if they're mad about that, but it just didn't make sense. So I think you have to go down it or go out Bells.
Yeah, I don't want to manage it in the dark though, even now having done as many times as I have, I wouldn't care to go down it in the dark. Okay. So that's what I mean, I think like almost always when we talked, when I did it, I was like, just don't want to be in that. You did it.
Yeah, I mean, correct, you should tell me if I'm wrong. I think we veered to the left side.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
just staying closer to the left. I mean, I think that's pretty good beta. And
There's starting to be a little bit of a trail. Like I think it will continue to be less loose.
But like Stacy's saying, as far as left as you can go, because then it kind of like becomes a clip that that's like the safest way down. That's kind of like.
And on the far left, there is some solid rock. So even if your feet aren't great, you can hold on to rock. And I think that's the way to go.
And then it always just kind of sucks at the bottom. Like you can't avoid the bowling balls and the like the boulder field, the scratchy bushes. It's tricky.
Any other questions?
Did you guys use pacers for any of the sections to like help yourself speed up? I know regarding the notch, that one's actually easier to go with solo because then you're not worried about knocking stuff on each other. But for any of the other sections that you do, did you use pacers and did you find it helpful if you did?
So I had no one pacing until I met you on Baldy. But he had some either work meetings or childcare, so he took me from Baldy to Hidden Peak.
Oh, I went like
100 meters past
we
Hidden Peak.
started going up the Twins, and then I had to go catch the tram down.
But
It took so long to get there.
that's true. But it's back, that was important.
Yeah.
And then I was supposed to meet another friend at the Fife. He was going to take me Fife all the way out. And I get there, and he's like, I'm done. I'm only going to the top of the Fife. He's like, what? Why are you?
Who is that?
Tom Goff. Name names. Tom Goff. I hope you're watching. And he's like, I'm out. I went really hard yesterday trying to break your time on Lone Peak. And he missed about like 2 minutes, so it gave me a good laugh, and then he bailed. But he brought me back too. And then at the bottom of the notch, I had a friend and I think it was 2 brothers. It might have 3. So there were 3 of them who brought me like everything you could think of. Like, Chips, here's a bag. Have a Coke. What do you want? And we're just super high energy from the bottom of the notch all the way up bells. And that was very helpful. You know, end of the day, you're tired, and it's just a bunch of dudes who are really high energy, joking around, trying to like feed you whatever you want. So I definitely use some pacers. I would have liked more. You know, if I could have it the whole time, great. But yeah, and then you.
Yeah, I didn't have any pacers until Hidden Peak, where Alexis was. She brought a bag and she took me to the Fife, which was awesome. And then at the Pfeifferhorn, I met my friend Land, and he took me all the way out of Bells, which was awesome. Because I was also, actually with Alexis was one of the harder sections. It was still pretty hot and I was tired. And as I met Land, it was starting to get cooler, so I kind of came alive, but I was still focused on thinking, oh, I want to go sub 20, but I think I'm like a half an hour like behind, so you're gonna have to like take it fast. So he like charged.
We had like a conversation.
And
I was like, Lynn, she needs to go faster. I need to make sure she finishes her
that's
break.
how it was.
I was so, because I was like, she needs a break. She's like, no, anything. I was like, faster. And the dark, did you feel like when it started to get dark, did you actually feel a little better?
Yeah, but yeah, Land was a pacer who I like hardly talked to the whole time because he was 20 feet ahead of me the whole time. Like, let's go on, and it really helped. That was it. Yeah.
So yes, maybe. Like if speed is your goal, for sure, I think. I mean, even like seeing a fresh face, somebody pops up and they, like he said, got the energy to be like, let's get your psych up when you're like, oh my gosh, this was the worst decision. Which is how I always feel somewhere between like white ball and 5. I was like, how do I do the thing?
I think for everything, like there's energy in a group, and it's the same. You know, if you have a pacer, you know, and you laugh with and take your mind off going slow or feeling bad. It's helpful. At least for me, it is. I think everyone's probably a little bit different.
A question. So like with these things, I always feel like you look back on them and you're like, man, I could have shaved 15 minutes here. I could have shaved 5 minutes here. Like, what were some of the things that from your FKT that you were like, man, I could have like shaved another like 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes here or there?
I mean, for me, the obvious answer is just being fitter, right? Like you can always do a little more. Whether or not that's true is a different story. I wanted to go a month later because I thought if I got another like solid long effort in, that would help me.
Probably would have been hurt by that. So.
Exactly. So I mean, I think timing wise was actually pretty good for me. There were a couple little missteps. I think the only time I missed the trail was heading down to Twin Lakes Pass. I just bumped, like was, I don't even know, like, it's a trail. And all of a sudden I look up and I'm looking down into solids and I'm like, what am I doing? And it was a minute, 30 seconds, not a big deal. Other than that, I felt like I was pretty good. I felt like all the early prep, like any spot I had a question on, I remembered and kind of feel like I nailed things. But yeah, there's always times like, oh, maybe if I would have pushed harder before Devil's Castle, I could have gotten a couple minutes because I was going slow there. But I don't know. Overall, I thought it was a pretty good run for me.
How do you guys feel about doing it as a group versus like individually? When I did it with 3 people, and it felt like a lot. There's a lot of people to manage in different paces, and you guys both were moving at your own pace. Do you think that played into like how you're able to make a lot of time?
I think so. I mean, first of all, did you have fun with your buddies?
I had a great time.
Yeah.
But I think like leading back to like Nick's point of like coming down the notch, there was 3 of us in the notch, and we also picked up some pacers on the beat out, and we lost a lot of time in the notch with having a ton of people in there. And like there was 5 or 6 of us in the notch and a lot of loose rock. And I think looking back on it, if I were to do it again, like I would like to do it by myself and to like move through that section alone.
Yeah.
And not worry about like overhead hazard.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think if you're in a group, it can be more fun.
Yeah.
But certainly everyone's going to feel bad at different times. And then it's almost like you're playing to the slowest person in the group, unless you're going to be like him and just leave your friends.
Yeah.
Which is fine too.
The pirate's way.
Exactly.
Pirate him.
So yeah, I think by yourself, it's probably faster if you can get support and pacers.
Unless you're on skis.
Then you can't leave your friends.
No, then whoever's feeling bad sits back and the other people break trail and you have different people that are strong at different times and overall it's faster, I think.
Yeah, I mean,
But dry rock, then yeah.
Yeah, that's
I would say that's a really.
But mentally, yeah, pacing.
yeah, I mean, the first time Alexis and I did it, we were with our friend Matt as well, and all 3 of us each kind of felt terrible at different times, and it was really helpful to have someone dragging you through that terrible section, and then vice versa. But it is hard to know because going back to the question before, like where could I have shaved off a few minutes? I always think like stopping to take layers off. I try to walk while doing that, but if I'm on a loose section, I'll just stop for a second. I always wonder, could I get that 5 minutes back? And so if your friend stops for 5 minutes to change their top, like, I don't know if that really matters.
Yeah, which comes back to like the purpose of the adventure, right? If you're going for time, most things I feel like you go solo or you go with someone who knows faster than you, right? But if it's more about the experience, then you know, a group of 2 or 3 is awesome. So I think we both did it with our spouses, and that was really fun. And I after not having seen them the way they did it, I'm like, well, I can see how, you know, because you would sit down and you'd like have to find, because even though that was the thing, you're so tired that you're like, where did I put that stash? And like, why did we spend 10 minutes looking for the stash, but we can't go on without it? Or like sunscreen, I put sunscreen, that like works, yeah. But you know, and I'm like, oh, like, man, we could say it feels like an hour, you know, or more, but at the same time, you know, it was really fun to be up there. I remember we started at 9 o'clock at night because it was just like when we had a babysitter the next day and someone could watch them that night, our kiddos, because my family was in town. And so I was like, okay, we're starting at 9. Why? Because that's when we have to start. And we just started rolling up that trail. And I was just like giddy because I was like, I didn't know, you know, the bridges with my best friend. And that was really fun, you know. So I think that's what's kind of beautiful about this one. Sometimes doing it longer is a lot harder. And that's a growing experience in itself, right? You know, it's like maybe giving your slower friend to the experience might end up being more rewarding at the end of the day than that one time you only did it 20 hours. So that's kind of why I feel like, you know, ultra and endurance sports and events are so fun.
You can go faster than 20 hours.
I think I'm going to plug Salt Lake National Rescue shamelessly for a second. But from our perspective, there was a question about trucks and terrain, the hardest one, where we rescue whirlers, like big horn and drum. So like keep that in mind, especially around the horn section, keeping yourself on your toes. And then also caches, just a quick piece of data. If you download this app called Gaia, you can add waypoints. Then you're not looking for cache, you're looking for waypoint, and it will tell you exactly where it is to like. So just like really dive deep into that stuff.
Big horn and drum, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, rescues.
Last year we had quite a few, and then actually earlier this week we had one on Devil's Castle, which is like not where you think you have it, but break an ankle, boom, you go down, you're done. So
Can I say, I love your guys' Instagram page.
Yes.
I love your guys' Instagram page.
So yeah, lower leg injuries, and then there's another thing I just wanted to chat in if that's all right about hydration. Don't bring just water. You will go down. You'll probably so hydrate with like other things, like you can put additives in your water with little tablets, and have that recreate hydration.
Could you remind me, I think kind of like going back to one thing you were talking about from there, was weather, which we've gone back to, like the Jurays do a ton of winter mountaineering and stuff, but they're even really sensitive to like when are they going up on that ridgeline and what's the weather like. And I think a lot of times people don't realize, it just like snowed a little, or maybe it rained a little, but then like Stacey was saying, temps dropped, so that puts ice on those rocks. And I had like a fell up there, slipped on the ice, right? Which I like to think, like our people always think about them. And Andy started earlier, I'm like, these are elite athletes, but part of it is because oftentimes it's not you guys, it's not the elite, or people who are out, doing all the stuff that are having trouble getting stuck on the world and then SARS getting called on. Because I feel like it's a real issue, obviously. So that's part of the reason why I think we're all stoked to come and talk about it. At the same time, I feel like it's usually not this group of people here who necessarily end up in search and rescue. But maybe it is. I don't mean that like, hopefully, I'm sure it'll happen now that I said that, okay. Like, not but just to the point that I think weather, right, is a big deal as well.
Yeah, I'd say like weather and know your limits.
Yeah.
Don't get on, like if you're not feeling it, like, don't get on that bridge. So
Easier said than done, knowing your limits though. Easier said than done, knowing your limits.
Yeah.
It takes like a lot of time and a lot of thoughtfulness. Which is
Prep
not
for
easy.
it. Like when
Not easy for me, but I think with time you can get a little bit of a grasp of it.
When I prep for it, like I stayed up for 24 hours to see what that would feel like. Like just do it. Just know what that feeling is like, so that when you go and perform, it's not the first time. Just like have that in the back of your mind.
Yeah, do a big day that's not as technical or dangerous. Yeah. Like do a bigger day that can, mitigate risk.
Yeah, I mean, from my own personal experience from 2015, the first time we did it, Alexis was saying, she had nightmares about it. Same thing, like I just had no idea what I was getting into, and I was only reading blogs. And when we did do it that first time, it felt like the biggest thing I'd ever done. And then did a lot more rock climbing and scrambling in subsequent years, which made me a lot more comfortable, so that I could even fathom the idea of going faster. So I don't think the first time we did it, I would have ever considered to try to go fast. We kept saying, like, we're just gonna take this easy, we're just gonna go super slow, we're gonna rest all the time. And it was only with experience that I thought, okay, I might feel comfortable going faster in that type of terrain.
That said, somebody asked a question about how to go faster, like where you cut stuff. Okay. You don't have.
But you don't stop.
You don't stop moving.
That's true.
Never stop.
Don't.
Because that's where you lose 5 minutes. Sit down and
Every
drink.
time that turns into.
And that's for any of these kind of, sorry, that like makes the,
Well, or it's like,
makes more haters out there, but don't stop moving. If you're moving slowly, you go faster.
And even when you're tired, push harder.
Don't drink water.
just run yourself out of your house.
Water's heavy.
That's actually, you bring up a good point about, like, we are using the word going faster, but on the world, there's
It's all slow.
definitely times where we're actually walking very slowly.
Yes, but you are.
But faster is a general term for, not stopping, not taking breaks, eating while you're moving.
Yeah, everything on the move, but as far as like walking, how many steps did you run?
All of them.
Yeah,
No, I mean, you hike most of it.
coming down Bell, like once you're running down
You run
Bell.
down bells.
The like 10 steps I made you run when I was filming you, make it look like you're running fast.
Maybe some at
It
the,
was so
like by Catherine, but not much. There's
But
not
not
much.
much, mostly a long walk.
Well, it's like climbing, and I'm sure a lot of you guys climbers think about play stations. That's like one thing I always think about. If you ever add up the time you're at a play station on a multi-pitch, it's like, 2 hours was just, and I'm not talking about like belaying. I mean, like the 5 minutes that you spent to transition, multiply that by how many pitches. It's kind of similar, right, with like aid station and ultras, and then anything else. Like, oh, it's only 5 minutes, but if you stop 5 times, it's 45 minutes, or it's 10 minutes by 5 times the count. So, but that is if speed you're thinking. Otherwise, like you can also like meet friends at Hidden Peak, buy a pizza, amazing.
Yeah, there's a restaurant there now.
Yeah, there's a restaurant. When we did the first time, there was like a hut, and we left like our cooler under there, and we were stoked, And now I'm like, if you time it right, you can just like sit down and have dinner.
This will be different for everybody that's had it, and probably on experience, but as far as kit goes, you talk about the backpacks and what's in the backpack, but what was kind of a snapshot of what's in the standard pack or something like that?
Weather dependent. On my first pack, I had a windbreaker, which it was 30 degrees and really windy, so that was great. And then I left that with the person who's giving me a pack, and just I think I had a t-shirt the rest of the day. T-shirt, running shorts.
One big question might be poles.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Did you guys use them, right? No, you didn't. You didn't. No, you didn't. No.
Yeah.
Wait, you love
I used them. I practiced with my poles though. That sounds silly, but because I was still trying to go, we were trying to do like self-supported classes time, and I would practice pulling my poles out and putting them back in my pack, because I do feel like it helped save my knees and quads. I wasn't quite as well trained, I feel like, as I wanted to be either, so I was looking for, and I have my ankle, so that's probably what I did. I used them, and I actually felt like they were really helpful.
And I love poles.
Yeah.
But didn't because I felt like it was too much strain.
Yeah, and there's too much, yes, it
Too much
basically,
fussing.
honestly, I feel like you only use them really, if I'm being honest, on like the first.
Now I remember, I actually would have taken them from Pole Line Pass to Hidden Peak, and
Yes.
regretted not having them there. I was debating if I should have someone bring them up to me, but I definitely would have used them on some of those easier climbs, because those felt hard without them.
That's what I like.
So I would have just had them for that middle little section and then dished them again.
They were nice to Ferguson.
Any other pieces of kit that you guys must have or wish you would have had?
Are you taking drugs? Did you take Tylenol or ibuprofen? No?
I did, I took it.
Some
I had
people
salt
are.
packs. Kind of like my ultra running kit, this is basic, except for I feel like I can eat more real food on the road.
Yes.
Like walking, hiking, so if I had like a turkey sandwich, that'd be awesome.
Careful with ibuprofen.
Yeah.
Oh, right, doctor.
Kidneys.
No.
Especially like a wind layer, if you're really low, it needs to be. So, but if it's really cold out, you gotta you won't need much heat.
Can you guys speak to pacing coming out of Ferguson, like getting twins? Like it's incredibly inspiring how fast you guys can move up to twins, but like how do you move through that training?
Straight up.
Well, I think we sort of decide, like, as you're going through the meadow of Ferguson, you can kind of take a hard right and kind of come up to Twins? Or didn't you sort of take a soft angle up to Twins?
Traverse the ridge, go upstairs, right?
Yeah,
And then get
it's
on the
just,
ridge.
how do you get to it from Ferguson? Are you asking like, how do you get faster going uphill like that?
Well, just like even lower, like how are you moving? Like you leave Ferguson Canyon, you're just like dead sprint, like I'm starting the world.
No, I mean, I think if you can go even effort for the whole day, that's probably a pretty good place to try and start. I think when I started, there was a party like 5 minutes ahead of me, so maybe I started too fast. Cause like I gotta pass them quick. But yeah, I think trying to just go even effort is, and I think you always will start a little bit faster.
So, like, good question. How does it feel? Like, how hard does it feel when you're starting?
It feels very easy.
Hard. Oh. I feel like you got like hitting on it. That's like, it's still great.
No, well, I mean,
No, but it shouldn't feel hard. You have 24 hours ahead of you, or
I
15, or 30, or whatever.
I argue,
Yeah,
still
you're-
felt, Stacy, did it feel easy to get to the top of the lane, or were you like, I'm kind of tired, but.
No, you
sometimes
maybe you
it's
feel tired by the time you get there, but as you're going up Ferguson, you shouldn't be breathing super hard.
It
You feel
should be
like
going like.
having an easy
you're
conversation. Like nothing should feel like you're dying in the moment. It shouldn't feel like you're racing a 5K. Or,
I do think it is,
Something,
it was the
whatever.
most, for whatever reason, it's the biggest climb, right?
Well,
It's like
yeah.
6,000 feet, I think. So I think like knowing that helps you though, because you're up and you're like, oh my gosh, I only on the first peak, but you like, I remind myself, yeah, you just did the biggest climb, you have to do the whole thing.
I think I intentionally went a little harder because it is pretty efficient travel,
Yeah.
which you don't get most of the day. So a lot of the day you're just limited by terrain. And it's like, well, from Drom to Superior, I just can't go that fast. But I think it was a very big effort to not go that hard. It's like if I go, maybe I can gain 20 minutes on the splits I was trying to hit up Twins, but then I'm screwed the rest of the day. So it was definitely keep it under control so you don't blow up because you have 15 hours of effort and you don't want to blow it all in the first.
Do you feel like, I don't think I've asked this, do you feel like you could have gone a little faster,
You can always go faster.
right? When you finished, I remember thinking, pretty good,
No, I mean, I think if I would have gone faster, I probably would have cramped it.
okay, so you did it.
I think energy-wise, yeah, it might have been okay, but
Would've had
it just wasn't as accustomed to that 14-hour hard effort. So
What was rated for seat position for you guys?
I don't do that scale.
Really?
I think it's junk.
Come on. Fine, next question.
Next question.
Somebody save me. Anybody?
No, I think it was, you just want to go like very comfortable. Comfortable, 3.5, 5.5, I don't know, I use
5.5, I
5.5.
think that's fair.
easy hard,
6.
relax, comfortable.
But it's, I feel like,
That scale is hard to interpret because you have to apply it to the distance or discipline. Like running on the road versus scrambling versus riding a bike versus 100-mile effort versus.
So for 14 hours and 40 minutes, I was at 10. It was about as hard as I could go. But in each moment, it doesn't feel that hard.
that's what I'm saying.
It was a 5. It was a 5.
It was probably,
Moderate.
it was probably,
Moderate, but for, okay. Next question. Are there anybody? Yeah.
Yeah, since we've been on the subject of the notch a lot, I really hate going down the notch, and since we have like all the fastest world runners here, what are you guys' opinions on not doing the notch and descending like Cherry or what's it, Jacob's Ladder?
first of all, good to see you again.
Good to see you. Yeah, that was so cool. Paragliding down Cherry Canyon, that's insane.
That would be a better way out of it.
Bring a wing to the top of the load.
Yes, even with stashes, you should stash a paraglide up there.
So the second time I did it, we opted to go out Jacob's Ladder just because I felt like as a group, we probably weren't in the best shape to try and go down something loose and kind of sketchy.
Yeah.
I feel like that wasn't the real world. Like I said, we're doing all these little stupid bumps because Jared said to do them.
Yeah.
And that's his route, and we like it. And
So
So also, who cares? Like, if you're just out there to have a good adventure in the sky, then do it.
Yeah.
without exactly, like if it's just you want to go do it, yeah, go out Jacob's. That's what we did. It was kind of long, and then we had to have him pick us up. We didn't have to, but we're really glad to see him at the trailhead, so we didn't have to walk the road all the way up.
So is your guys' opinion that is that Cherry Canyon and Jacob's Ladder is not a legitimate whirl? or?
I think if you're trying to go for the FKT, you should go up Bells. Any other time, it's legit.
To our two friends that were with him that never have actually completed a true whirl, it doesn't count. But
Okay.
for everybody else, for sure it counts. Why does Jared have a monopoly on it? I actually think it would be more elegant to go up Jeff Smith.
Yeah,
And then out Jacob's Ladder, so it makes it more like a straight line, and so these little weird
that's true.
and out bells, but
Yeah. I think Jared looks at it like you start on Wasatch and you finish on Wasatch.
Jeff Smith, it starts
Okay.
in the.
I think he wanted to hit the ridges, but
Or, yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter, it's like how,
Yeah,
my opinion means nothing.
yeah, I'm
Yeah,
probably
I
overthinking.
I call it legit, whatever you want to do. Like if you don't feel like you're safe to go down the notch, why would you do it?
Yeah.
Just go out there. It's
Okay.
great. And it's a crazy long, awesome day.
Yep,
right, one of the coolest things about it is it's in your backyard, and you can make an adventure as big as you want to see.
seriously, I mean,
You don't have to go
Yeah.
across the world.
if I
It's a
take
huge
Jacobs, that practically ends in my backyard.
Yeah.
because I live-
Well, then you should do it that way instead.
Yeah.
That makes a ton of sense.
And what's your last name?
It's Oler.
Oh, yeah, so the Oler version.
Yeah.
World,
That's-
Oler version, your yard. And
That's-
then everybody else doesn't have that, you have to feed them in your yard.
All right, sounds good.
This is kind of a touristy question, I suppose, but I guess I'm trying to put it in perspective because I think you guys are outrageous athletes. Is this like a fun jaunt for you guys, or is this like the hardest thing you've ever done, or have you done other things that were like you had to train harder for and that felt harder? Like just trying to put the world in perspective to like you guys have all traveled a lot, and done a lot of cool stuff, like yeah. What's the worst thing you've ever done?
I definitely tried hard. Like it was definitely a hard effort. Was it fun? Yeah, it was great. You know, you're out in your backyard. It was a beautiful day. I'm meeting friends every couple hours. Like I had a really good time. And looking back on it, I was like, oh yeah, that was a wonderful day. So yeah, it was definitely hard.
Have you done harder things?
It's tough, right? It's like Andrew's perceived effort. The whole day, it didn't feel like I was going to throw up and puke. It's a lot harder to go run an 800-meter race on a track where you throw up every time.
Do you think there's anywhere in the world that has kind of a similarly outrageous, like, I've always felt like the world, like when I first moved here, to Silent Nash, I thought I invented the world. Because I did a part of it and I was like, whoa, you could totally just keep going on this whole ridge. And then I found out about Jared Campbell and I was like, oh, I didn't invent that. But like, I just feel like it's such a unique feature. Have you done other similarly obvious, like, link-ups, I guess? I mean, obviously, like, people do link-ups all the time, but.
Grand Traverse.
Yeah.
I think your idea of like looking at it and seeing it, you can do it anywhere. The first long thing I did, really long thing, was with Andy. It was 36 hours. We were driving to my parents' house down south, and on I-15, looked over at Lone Peak and saw North Thunder, and then saw, you know, Twins and Olympus and Grandeur. And we're like, whoa, you can see this like skyline all across the Wasatch. And then he's like, we should go do that. And we went and did it, and it was like the biggest adventure of our lives. You know, we've done a couple different other ones where you just look and see it. So yeah, I think there's stuff like that all over the place.
Yeah, lots of mountain ranges actually lend themselves to just traversing the whole thing. Like the LaSalle's or.
I guess policy viewers, like now that I'm.
Sure, yeah, there's tons that are probably more elegant than the world, but.
I guess I think that's the thing about the world is it's so accessible. I mean, clearly there are difficult spots and it's our guide, you know, but it's so accessible compared to like a policy viewers, you really have to be like super technical farmer to get through and things like that. That just seems really unique to me.
And then
Mostly I was just wondering if.
there were a bunch where our imagination got bigger than our abilities that are undone. So.
Oh, like you're skiing.
Sure, yeah, like that one, or
For some reason, we thought we could ski from Nebo to
Lone Peak, over every peak. We figured that out when we tried Nolan's 14ers on skis.
multiple times.
Yeah, there's just some big ones out there that we got soft.
How far did you get on Nebo to Lone?
Nebo. We got loaded up, we left caches, and
We pre-ate, we were ready. We had a lot of food in our
built
bellies.
Stacy's technique. And it was actually isothermic. So even on the summit, there was no freeze, and so we just realized there's no point. And so we just nailed it there. Told my wife I'd see her in 3 days and then.
Sometimes heavy.
Heavier after. That's each way.
Too good. Any other questions out there? Last call.
You guys wearing trail runners, approach shoes? Do you have a preference either way?
Question.
Yeah, that was a good question.
Brad's still here?
Yeah, he's long ago.
The Sportiva trail runners are really nice. They're real sticky. They've got, I mean, I like the Bushidos. They have a harder sole, but you know, he'll wear the softer Sportiva trail runners.
Yeah, it's just trail running shoe with the stickiest rubber I could find, which was the Sportiva Mutant, because I feel like it is kind of grippy. But I think any shoe that's grippy and fits your foot.
You could wear coach shoes if your feet are good for it. Yeah.
I wouldn't want to wear approach shoes. If you're hiking, maybe, but I don't like running in trail shoes. Even though some of them say you can run in them, they're okay. It's just feels better to run in them. That's true.
They're pretty uncomfortable after anything more than like superior. You're like, this is not just
Yeah.
Yeah, it probably depends too on how comfortable you are on the technical terrain or how, difficult it is. So some people might prefer a shoe like this and others might be totally comfortable. Yeah.
Did we change our shoes the first time?
We did, halfway through.
Yeah, we thought it was such a big difference.
It felt better though, it did, I was like, you changed.
Socks, shorts.
No change. Okay.
How
Good
did you have
stopping.
speed is not way?
Good stuff.
So you could stash shoes if you wanted. You can do whatever you want.
But like, where's a shoe that you can do the whole day? You know what I mean? I think everybody has that shoe that they're like, this one I don't think was. We'll think about it. I can't use it, but it's comfortable. I think sometimes I like want to feel rock more, like I've done speed cross, I saw speed cross, which has a big ledge on it, which is fun. I like that too, but you don't necessarily feel as much of it.
What do you use?
What shoe did I use?
Yeah.
I used like the speed cross, and then someone had a ridge short shoe.
The SA terrain or something.
Yeah, is that what it was?
Those are last year's shoes.
What shoe did you use? That's what I.
Yes, that's right.
That's what I thought. This is Taryn, by the way. She also did the roll last year. It's super fast time. Sitting back there, I was like, what is she asking? This is a trick question. What shoe did you use? I know. I did speed cross and then that one, but yeah, but the Sex Ride also would be a good option.
I would choose.
Sorry. I understand it.
Thank you guys for joining us. Is there any other questions? You got one?
So we know where the bar is now. How fast do you guys think we're going to see it? Like, what time do you think we'll see the men's and women's times drop to in the coming years?
I mean, I always feel like the next even hour is a good place to go. So why not some 14 for the men's? 14:40. It'd be a big drop. I mean, I think it helps to be local.
Yeah, I
Because
agree.
you can know the terrain. So that makes it a little harder. 'Cause obviously, there are tons of super fit dudes out there that can go fast.
Yeah, we debated this a little bit. It's a funny combination where you have the fitness to go faster and the comfort on rough terrain. And for somebody to come from out of town and just on site it, they probably have to be like,
Stay in Southern.
like Killian level.
Yeah.
To just come in and crush that without really having any information because he's that much better than Jason.
And they still have
Just going uphill.
They still have to get it right, right? Like if they
Yeah, yeah.
even then he would
But
have to get it
Killian
right.
But if he came and he put his mind to it,
Well,
I
he
would
has tons of people showing where to go.
I would expect him to go something.
He cuts some switchbacks too.
You probably would. There are no switchbacks.
I think the women's time could go way lower.
We'll see, Taryn.
I know. We'll see, yeah, whether it's 7:19 or 7:18, I think it has a lot more room to get faster.
I think Jason's being like humble, but I think Jason's time will be really hard to beat. That's what I think.
But someone will go faster. Someone will go significantly
Yeah, maybe
faster.
Killian will show up.
No, no.
That's a good amount as well.
Joey Campbell.
He's down, Joey's off.
Joe can go faster.
Yeah, that's true, and Joey's was unsupported, self-supported.
I think it was self.
It was self.
I think the unsupported still sits at like 44 hours. Like I don't think.
What does unsupported even mean then?
Carry all.
Carry
Carry everything.
Oh, you carry the ones. Got it.
I just argued with someone over this last week and I was wrong.
It's-
I thought Joey's was unsupported and it was self-supported.
Last call, any questions? Wrap it up. Yeah, maybe we've mentioned Jared's blog, there's a wealth of information out there, so you can get submitted there. And thank you to Search and Rescue for being here and everything you guys do.
What are these hats for?
That's a wrap. Yeah.
Dude, tank.
Tank.
Dude,
Nice
tank.
work, you guys.
Dude, tank.
Oh.
Yeah, huge,
Women's tank.
just for one week. Oh, no. One more week announcement. Lost for you guys is doing 20% off for a week. Is that in shop?
In shop, yeah.
In shop. So, in shop, 20% off Lost for you gear. A week. Don't miss out.
Alright.